Joined by Jamal Abdi. He's a policy director at the National Iranian American Council. Leeling said it was a big deal about 4 or 5 times during her live report. This is a big deal. Any surprises here for you?
I'm surprised that they were able to get it across the finish line and get this done. Now, I think everybody was optimistic that they were going to be able to do this, but in the last few days, it looked like things were getting a little bit wobbly. And I think the fact that the UN, the P5+1, they were able to really deliver on what they had set out to deliver. I think that is maybe not a shocking surprise, but it is a big deal. It is a historic achievement.
Here in the United States, we always look for winners and losers. China always says win-win. They like to see a win-win. Is this a win-win? How do you see this shaking out in terms of winners and losers? We've heard a lot of people saying today, public diplomacy won for a change.
That's a really good point. I mean, in order to get this deal, it had to be a win-win. If one of the parties went home and had to try to sell a losing deal, this thing would quickly fall apart. And we have to remember, this is not, most international deals, they last for a couple years, 2, 3, 5 years. This is supposed to last for really 25 years, some of the provisions inside of it. So this has to stick. And in order to stick, the Iranians had to get something, the UN powers had to get something, President Obama has to have something he can deliver at home. And I do think, though, the bottom line is that just getting the deal, just breaking this obstacle between the United States and Iran is a win that hopefully will promise more in the future.
We talk about a lot of the people at the table, and yet there are these outside forces, both in Iran and the United States, who might want to create some mischief. Already the President of the United States kind of telling Congress, hey, lay off. How tough is this going to be to navigate for these two leaders in both the United States and Iran? Because there are forces on both sides not necessarily crazy about this.
Yeah, that's true. In Iran, the opposition forces, the hardline forces, have really tried to make the claim that this deal violates the supreme leader's red lines. That's the line they have had to take. The problem here is that in Iran, the supreme leader has actually really invested in this deal, and Zarif, the lead Iranian negotiator, really was acting on behalf of the supreme leader. So I think that in Iran, actually, the hardliners are going to be relatively controlled and sort of tamped down. In the United States, things are a little bit different, a little bit more messy. Congress is already planning to move forward with a vote in one of the committees on a bill to give itself veto power over the deal. And we've already seen the willingness of some in Congress to take extraordinary measures to try to sabotage this. So I think the president's going to have his hands full, but now that he has something tangible, he has a framework in hand to sell and defend, I think ultimately he will prevail.
The lifting of sanctions, critically important to Iran. They've been hammered by these sanctions. How quickly can that be put in place, and how much of a change would that mean for the Iranian people?
I mean, first, to your first question, the framework outlines a process whereby Iran puts in place the initial restrictions on its program, and then the EU and the United States suspends its sanctions with a provision to be able to snap them back into place if there's a falling apart of the deal. Now, I think it needs to be spelled out exactly how that gets done. The sanctions laws are almost as complicated as the nuclear physics behind this deal. It's going to be important for Iran to see practical benefits from this, because if it looks like Iran is compromising and not getting anything, any kind of benefit, and Iranians are not benefiting, then I do think that you have a chance that hardliners in Iran will manage to come back and defeat the deal. But if it succeeds, I think Iran has a lot to offer the world. I think the Iranian people, they're sophisticated, they're progressive, they're among the most educated people in the Middle East. And if the obstacles for the Iranian people get lifted successfully through this deal, I think you're going to see a lot of positive things coming out of the country.
Jamal, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.